Good morning. Welcome everybody to session 2 of our new user training this year in 2025. We did a session on Monday. I know some of you were able to go to that one for system administrators. Basically, anybody who is going to be handling the back end of the system and doing some of the more housekeeping things for folks. So this time I'm going to really try to stay focused on just cataloging and that part of the system versus getting into more of the nuts and bolts kind of thing. If you're curious about that or have somebody in your institution that wants to know more or wants to do that, this will be up on our YouTube channel for you to look at later. And anybody who's registered, you'll get the link once it goes up. I'll send out a note about that. So talking about new user training cataloging today. And we're going to cover the basic, because I know some folks are brand new. Some of this is a recap for you guys, but that's absolutely fine. So we're not going to go too into depth about some of the straightforward stuff, but we're going to talk about logging onto the system and basic navigation, creating new object records, basic fields to use, creating entity records, kind of best practices. When we're looking at the sandbox, we're going to be doing this at a cataloging level access. There's different levels of access. There's administrator that can do pretty much everything. There's cataloging that can do a lot of things. And then there's researcher, which is just seeing and no editing. For purposes of this, we're just going to say cataloging today, because sometimes I accidentally get to stuff that is that the normal cataloger is not going to get to see and you don't need to know, and it gets me off on a tangent. So we're just going to stay at the cataloging level when we go to the sandbox today. You will be getting, when you get a new system, or if you haven't yet, you'll get the URL, the address from your system administrator, whoever that is in your group, and along with a username and password. We mentioned this to the administrators, so this is just something for you folks to know as well. We highly recommend everybody getting their own login. Don't use the overall institutional login. You can use as many people and logins as you want, so that's great. You can have as many people on at the same time as you want, so you don't have to be judicious with only giving out 2 or 3 usernames. You can do as many as you want. So basic, getting into the system and the basic navigation. You'll get that URL from them and your username and password. If they ask you what you want your password to be, don't say password, please. Don't say 1234, 1234. Use something that you're going to remember that's enough that it's a little bit tricky, but something that you'll remember and you don't mind entering over and over again, because you will. If you're using one shared computer at your institution, you don't want people to be able to get back to your login every single time. It's much easier to be able to see who logged in where, and you don't want somebody else accidentally doing something that they're not supposed to be doing. So you land, when you get your URL, you'll land on this screen. It'll just say CollectiveAccess, the name, this is the sandbox copy, this is straight out of the manual. You'll see, Main Street, USA Historical Society, whatever your name is chosen for this. And you enter the information there. If it's wrong, you'll get just a little bit login invalid. So try typing again, just in case. If something else is still wrong, talk to your system administrator and they can fix it for you. If something goes drastically pear-shaped, you can always email us, the CTCo at clho.org email, and you get me or Dana. We can get into your systems and tweak stuff if we need to. Basic navigation on your screen. This is again from the manual, and it's what the dashboard landing page will look like pretty much. You'll always have this CollectiveAccess up in the upper left-hand corner. That'll get you back to the main screen. So if you don't know where you are, click that and you'll go back to the main one. You'll always see this find thing at the top. Depending on your access level, you may not see import, you may not see manage, depends what you have. This little box over here is the quick search box, and that's basically like the equivalent of like a Google search. It's a quick and easy way to go in and just find something. If you're looking for a particular number, you can just put it there. Or if you want to see anything that has to do with cats in your whole system, just put that there. It searches across all of the modules in your system and a good amount of the fields in the system. Your actual dashboard down here may differ a little bit as this is customizable. We have a couple of videos on that for anybody who wants to know more about doing that. You will probably almost always have this counts up at the top that gives you just an overview of what kind of records are in the system. Currently, as of this screen grab, which was, I don't even know when I did it, there were 9,931 objects, and I think I took it from the sandbox. Might have taken it from Fairfield. But it kind of gives you a idea of what all that is. Little extra note, when you want to log out of your system, down at the very bottom, there's a tiny little button that says log out. So again, if you're on a shared machine at your institution, I recommend logging out. After a period of time, the system will log you out itself, but just so you don't have to worry about it, you can do that. So we're going to talk about creating new records. Per that access level before, administrators can create new records. Usually your system comes with your sandbox being able, your cataloging users to create new records as well. I have set my system up in Fairfield so that cataloging level cannot delete any records, but a lot of the systems come with that level being able to delete. So that's something you might want to discuss internally, whether you want to allow that or have that tweaked a little bit. Talking about creating new records and the different modules that you can use in the system, I just want to briefly touch on lots and individual object records. So lots are kind of an overview grouping of items that are coming into the institution. Like I got this screen grab of this image from Fairfield's, one of Fairfield's old accession registers, where you can see how they organized it at the time. They have groupings of items, the donor, all grouped together. So this whole group of items would be considered a lot. So and my example as always is I walk in to the Historical Society with all of my stuff from my wedding. Got married in the local church. Here's my photos. Here's my dress. Here's my newspaper announcement, my invitations. All of that is considered one lot of items. Do you need to use the lot module? You do not. That is an institutional discussion and decision. I am finding it useful in Fairfield because I have, not everything is cataloged. You guys will be shocked to hear that because I know everybody has everything in their collection catalog. So I'm going, and a lot of the ties to things were lost over the years. So part of the whole story with collections coming in is always, what's the story? Where did this come from? Who is it owned by? I have this information in the succession register. I don't have it in my database, and I'm slowly kind of trying to build those ties back together. So I am using lots at Fairfield in order to kind of make those connections again. Again, you don't have to. It's up to you guys. It's up to what kind of a state your collection is in. If you have that kind of information around, if you don't, sometimes you just want to go only the objects. You don't care about that higher level. Totally up to you. Using the lots is convenient for, people like me coming in the door with a whole bunch of stuff. You can kind of track what's happening to that whole collection. But it's up to you guys again. Discuss in the process in-house and with your groups. And are you doing an inventory? Are you copying from an old accession register? It's probably more useful for certain views. The layout navigation of the system too. This is again straight from the manual. It's always going to look the same layout. Let me put it that way. Your basic setup is, again, there's that collective access icon on the top left that'll get you back to the main login screen or get you back to the main screen rather than this is kind of a record view of a new physical object screen. And you have that new find manage up at the top. On the left-hand page, you're always going to have the options that are available to you for the groupings of the fields. And it depends what you want to work on. And we'll look at that a little bit more as we go. The middle part, where I've got kind of 5 and 4 numbered and highlighted over here, that's always the kind of meat and potatoes of your entry, of the information that's going into the different fields. Don't forget the save and cancel. These buttons are available at the very top of your record and all the way down at the bottom. So you don't have to scroll all the way up and all the way down every single time. It's a little bit easier to get to. I think I have it noted further on, but keep in mind that some of you have custom screens that were done for you for either a custom quick entry or like an inventory entry or something like that. So this screen will always still exist. This is also always going to be your basic info screen, what the screen grab is from. Your screen may look a little bit different, but you'll be able to tell what one you're on by the list over on the left-hand side. So let's kind of walk through some of these, and we're going to do a lot record quickly, working from my old accession register. I don't know where these things are necessarily, but we want to record that we have this group of items from Mrs. Pelosi. So let me go to said sandbox. Let me share that for a second. All right. And can you guys see that screen okay? Because my window is really small, so I can see it. All right. This one's smaller. There we go. That's better. So we're going to log in today for our username. We're going to use Betty Volunteer. She's a longtime volunteer. She knows a lot about the collection. So for login, you can do this using that administrator login that we have information for the sandbox that's universal. But that gives you admin level, and this is why I'm wanting to do this in the cataloging level. So we're going to put Betty in as a user today. Betty's username is bvolunteer and her password is Connecticut if anyone wants to be her when you go on, just for kicks, to try it out just at that level. So we're going in as her. We had done a previous search that this is showing up. And maybe over here, I have to move us. I'm blocking everybody over here. So this is from a previous search. It just comes up to this. And when in doubt, who's logged into the screen, again, you can see down at the bottom, it'll say who the user is when you're logging on. So I actually want to go back to that main screen. So I'm going to click that collective access. This is Betty's landing page. She just has counts up here and just has that new find manage history. A note about that history button. It's great. It kind of resets every time you log in or every like 24 hours, but whatever record you have been in that day will show up here. So rather than having to research for something, you can go in and just hover over history, go over objects, and there's the sampler record that we were just on. So for purposes of creating a new record, and to get back to my screen grab of Mrs. Pelosi's gift here. So we're going to do this from lot first, and then we'll go over objects as well. So with any of them, you have new, the drop down for whichever module, whichever group you want to use. It's all kind of the same process. Today, we're doing a new lot. It was a gift. I'm going to tweak something with the share really quick because it's going to be easier. Because then I can hop between screens and you guys won't get You'll be able to see stuff. There we go. Okay, so back into creating our record. So accession title and accession number. Accession number is the object ID that you'll see in the individual records. And we already have that on our entry. It was assigned 1977.3. That's the system that Fairfield used at that point. So I'm going to put 1977.3. Some accession titles, I don't tend to title stuff. If I have a specific collection of stuff coming through from somebody, I might name it that, but we don't in our day-to-day basis use that. Some of you may have some longstanding collections that are a lot easier to do. So a lot of the time what I do just for ease of use is I'll copy that and I'll put that as the accession title as well. There's no need to have that. I just like to duplicate it. It's easier. So looking at her record, actually, before I go back, I'm going to save because you notice over here, there's a lot of gray grayed out over here because we haven't saved the record yet. So we haven't actually completed it. So if you click save, it'll go through and then you'll see this is now black and you have some other options over here that show up. So now we can go in and fill in some of the rest of this record. You don't need to fill in every single field. I'll probably say that like a couple times. You don't need to do a lot. Or like do a complete record. You don't do like, I have to create a catalog publication level entry every time. You don't. So for now, we're going to say there's these 4 items from Irene, Mrs. Irene. We don't have a date on this register to say exactly when it came in, so that's fine. We're just going to go in and put some of what you can fill in here. So just for kicks, I'm going to say it was a gift of Mrs. Irene, and her name is, I'm pretty sure it's Palo, just from previous entries from her. We're going to go with that for now. Curatorial description. This is for the lot again, so you don't have to go crazy. Workflow wise for me in Fairfield, I've been going through and listing some of the things, especially if I don't know what they are or where they have been. My Minnesota colleague has a slightly different workflow. She doesn't put anything into her system unless she can put hands on it and knows where it is. Because of the nature of Fairfield's collection, I'm putting stuff in even if I don't know where it is because of all of those connections that I haven't made yet, basically. So but I have been listing them under curatorial description. So like if I came up with a little tiny tag that said gift of Mrs. Irene, and I'm like, I don't know. It's just, I know that it's like a roll of toilet paper and it says it was a gift of her. What the heck? I can still go into my system and find it and reference back to this. So again, institutional. For this, I'm just going to say grouping of 5 items donated in 1977. It's fine. And just do that for now. One of the things you can do from your lot records, we're not going to spend a lot of time on lots. Little side note, over on the left-hand side, when you see this little minus sign, and you see like a little box underneath it, if you click on that, it'll shrink that up, which is useful in some of the other records when you've got a whole length of options to choose from. So if you want to see more and get more information, you can click on that eye and it opens it up a little bit. It's useful. You can also see when the record was created and who last edited the record. So we're going to close that for now. Admin info, just click on this one. This is exactly what it sounds like. Accession status, we're going to say this was accessioned. The record status, I use it. You don't have to. That accession one is more useful. I always just put like editing in progress for most everything. That's just for my own information. So we're going to go and create a record from this lot. So there's two different ways of creating individual object records, and we'll go through a couple of them. So over here on the left-hand side in the little letters, you'll see that it says add new, and there's a drop down here of different types of things. So audiobook, document, moving image, physical object, still image. So I want to create a new physical object. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to make sure to click this little plus button. So where we are now, the system kind of circles around a lot, and it's very easy until you get used to it to like lose track of where you are. Like, am I in a lot record? I'm in an object record. Where am I? It'll always tell you over here where you are. You're in a lot that contains 0 objects, and you're editing a lot that's a gift, because that's what I chose it as based on the accession register. I'm going to add physical object and click the little plus sign. That's going to click us over to an object record. So that's in a different bucket in the system. So now again, wait, where did I go? What did I just do? Now you're creating a new physical object. You haven't saved this object yet, so we're still grayed out over here. So I'm going to go back and use this. They gave it the number 1977.3.1 is 2 rolls of toilet paper. I would do a slightly different numbering for that now, and we might do it for this. So I'm going to add that it's 0.1.
Oh.
And then I'm going to just put in the title what it actually is. And I'm actually going to spell it the way that they spelled it in the records. Right. This is where things like alternate title can come in handy, that kind of thing. But I've got this basic stuff here. So I'm going to click save. And now all of my sections over here are dark. So your record has now been created. Hold on a second. We'll get back to that slide too for a second, but thinking about what kind of information do you need for your record? A basic skeleton record is absolutely fine. You do not need to know all the terms and fanciness about a record just to get it in there. This will work for just getting records into the system. And I like to say future curators will come in and to use their expertise on stuff, but who knows? But getting that accession identification number in is huge. Some kind of title or name of an object. Some people get a little bit more specific, and this is in-house decision for you guys. We go very generic in Fairfield, and this is like based off of what I've done at former institutions. Like, I don't get specific and say, Chief Fox and Company brand toilet paper, pink rolls or something like that. That's description. That's later on. I am going for that just general toilet paper. That's fine. I also don't use on the opposite of that, for things like photographs, I do a more descriptive title or a name of that object rather than just saying photograph. I will say, 2 men in rowboat during flood. Something like that, because it's easier to go through and scroll down and see things like that. Okay, going back. Let me go back to our actual record. So toilet paper, we go down, other identifier, we don't really have one. This is our basic information on this first screen with things like a curatorial description and a public access description. The curatorial description is is your nuts and bolts description of an item. It's not the exhibit label text kind of label. So curatorial, and this is what's if you go onto the public portal, if you're joining that as an institution, that's going to be your general description of something that will show up on the public portal. Unless you have public access filled in, public access will always supersede curatorial. And if there's a public access, you will not see the curatorial. So this is where you would want to say something like 2 rolls of toilet paper with paper covers wrapping. paper wrapping. Oh, I'm not spelling right. Rolls of toilet paper with paper wrapping. Printed with maker's name and size, something like that is fine. And the system does not save automatically, so you do have to click save every single time. If you don't click save, it will yell at you. So you don't have to worry about forgetting. It'll yell. So like I just entered that, say I decided that I wanted to go to another record. Oh, maybe I did save. Did I save? Okay, let me go back. So I'm going to go back to my history, my objects, the toilet paper rolls. Didn't save and didn't yell. We're going to look into that. So oh, I'm using a incognito window on this, so it may not have let the window pop up. Good to know. With name of maker. I'll just say that. So we're going to click save up here. And everybody's going to have their own workflow for things, how they like to catalog things, how they like to enter things. When I do it, I usually, and this is just my own weird way of going through the system, is I'll create this stuff and then I'll go down to the bottom where again, another admin info screen, and I'll set my collection sources being, I'm going to say it's Fairfield. I'm going to say that items accessions. My record status is editing in progress. And again, whether this information is necessary for you guys right now, up to you guys. We're going to click save again. And then I kind of work up from the bottom, but that's up to folks there. Let's see, I think I've pretty much gotten this. I've got the identification number, the name and title of the object, the really basic description. I don't have a date. Let's go back and look at that, and location. So in that first page is your date. So date, I'm not sure. I think it's the 1950s. So we'll say about 1950. The system, and you pull down your type as well, your copyrighted, manufactured, published, patent dates, things like that. By far, the manufactured created is the one we use the most. Even if you know something was used in a particular date, most of the time it was made about the same time. So I'm going to say manufactured created. The system will standardize dates for you. So I'm going to say about 1950. I'm going to save that. And it's going to come up and change that for me to circa 1950. For searching purposes, that will go 5 years before and 5 years after. So if it's something where you're not entirely sure that it might be, I'm just going to add a new one just for kicks. It might be anywhere from 1950 to 1970. You can say that as well. And when I save that, it is going to keep just that stretch of numbers. So I always go broader is better for that, just to narrow something down, because thinking about your collections, you probably have something that was made or used in the last 5 years, but you also very likely have something made or used in the last 100 years. So even knowing what century it's in is not a bad idea. So if I just put 20th, 29th century, see, that's what happens when I take the glasses off. 20th century. I'm gonna do manufacturer created again, just so you can see how it looks. And it'll straight come up 20th century. But it will search, if you search for anything from like 1900 to 1999, it'll show up in search. The search will cover those dates. So we've got all of those things on there for this. Location is the last one. Location, that's something for you guys to discuss internally as well and get those set up by the system. They are authorities. So if you go down to location here, every institution has to set up their own locations. Here's my Fairfield ones. If you've migrated information, it'll be a something that may need some cleanup, but we're going to say, actually, I'm going to say this is located in our offsite, and these are our racks at offsite. So I'm going to say it's on rack 125. And there's a lot of notes fields everywhere. I'm a huge fan of notes. So always good to have something like that. And you can say, even something like possibly inbox FHS 123. One little thing that we've added in the last couple years that I borrowed from Minnesota, she came up with it first, is this inventory down here, which is really useful just for tracking things that you may not have seen for a while, or you may not or you may have been looking for. I use this a lot for stuff going into exhibitions or things relating to stuff that needs conservation, stuff like that. And you're just entering who saw it and when they saw it. This is particularly useful for things like old inventories or things that you're looking to deaccession, or it's like a found in collection and you have no history on it. There's certain rules in Connecticut about getting rid of found in collections items, and period of time that you have to have had it in your possession. So the more you know about that, the better. So I know, for instance, I've got some old inventories that I enter from Fairfield, and I know they were done in the 1980s, and I know who did them. So a lot of the time I'll put that information in there, even if I don't know where it currently is. If I'm working on an old inventory sheet, I'll put that in there to say, like, this person saw this on this date. We used to have it. Something like this, and a lot of the toys that went back to our offsite storage. I put myself in. You do have to have that inventory person does need to be in your system as an entity, which we'll talk about entities in a minute. So that's going to be me. And we'll say that I saw it the other day, yesterday. It also just pops up with the little calendar too. So if you click into it, you can just click on a date and it'll put it and click save. Super useful. Also, if you have several different people working on different projects, like if the curator goes off site, for instance, if my curator goes off site and finds something, she could put in that she saw this thing. So we know that it's where it is. Okay. So we've got her lot in, we've got one of the records in. So you can do standalone objects too. This is great if you're just doing inventories, if you're just going to like this other screen and just on your shelf, cataloging stuff as you come to them and just pulling things off as you go. A good way to practice that. You're going to create kind of the same way that you do with lots. For anybody to practice, just grab the closest thing next to you. Go to the sandbox, practice it in your own system if you want. That's up to you guys. Sandbox is the easiest way to do it. I have my prop ready to go this morning. And we're just kind of going to go over this with a couple extra things thrown in there. So this is my prop. This is my bear. I just moved, so he's been out and hanging out. So this is B. He was willing to be a prop today. But also I thought about it and I was like, let me grab B. I'm like, oh, but this is really something you might have in your institution anyway. So make up a number and a title, and we can fill in what we know from there. So, oh, and this is getting into the workflow again, using B. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is you can either type live into your database or create a little worksheet for yourselves, especially if you're in a situation where it's going to be easier just to write something down and not necessarily be sitting typing, that kind of thing. You can come up with a stack of papers to enter at a later date. Especially good with this system because you don't have to be working at your institution, at your desk, at storage, whatever. You might be at offsite, you might have a stack of stuff. You're like, you know what? It's supposed to be terribly hot weather. I'm not going to sit in the attic of my historic house to do any of this. Let me fill out the worksheets. And then when it's supposed to be gross over the weekend, I'll bring these home and I'll do it home or in an air conditioned office or something. So either way, whichever works out for you, I have some cataloging worksheet examples for anybody if they want it, but you can just fill out like a Word document and just put stuff that you want in there, title, accession number, all of that stuff. And as we're going, it's okay to not know things. It's okay that you don't have every single field filled in. Nobody is ever going to have every single field of a record filled in. Do set out some guidelines for yourselves, because along with just following best practices, keeps cracking me up that he's sitting here and keep looking up at the screen. There's best practices in general for museum cataloging, but then there's also institutional little tweaks that you may need to know just for yourselves. You may always call a certain thing by a certain name. So it's not necessarily best practice that will affect all museums around the world, but it may be specific to you guys. And it's good to have that in hand to hand out to new volunteers, new employees, new trainees, that kind of thing. So let's go back to this record. So we're in the old record. Okay, but now we want to create a new one. He's getting his own
Excuse
record.
me. May I
Yes.
ask a question?
Always, please.
All right. Do you have to use the lot and
Nope.
object thing? Can you
Nope.
use one or the other? Do you use the lot more like if you have a collection of something from one person?
Yes.
Rather
You
that
yep.
for collections, period. You don't go into the object thing for.
Most people only use objects. There's only literally a handful of us that use that lots feature within Connecticut Collections, just because they've never done that. So it's okay. It is 100% okay to never ever touch the lots. I just always like to make sure that people know it's available and it can be useful, but it depends on what you're doing. Like I said, if you're overwhelmed, say you have a construction project going on, you have tons of things happening, stuff everywhere, you've had to move things all over the place. I walk in the door with all of my wedding stuff, which is fabulous, and you want it because it's really exciting, but you don't have any time to deal with it right now. You don't have the time to go in and put new wedding dress, new photographs, new whatever. You can create that lot to track it and just say group of items that are fabulous from Diane Lee. We want these, we need to catalog them. They are stored in this box, in this room, in this place. And we have the deed of gift. That's the only reason that in general, that you would probably like need to do it. You do not have to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, most people only go with the lots or go with the objects. And just individual object records. And it's totally fine because there's other ways of pulling things together if you need to.
Right.
So without not even thinking about the lots anymore, this is going in to create a new object. So we're even just going to do this straight from wherever we are in the system, because this new find manage is always going to be up there. So I'm going to go to new. I want to create a new object. B is a physical object. So we're going to click that. You can change that if you click the wrong one accidentally. You can change it, and that's fine. So physical object. We're going to give B a number from this year, but you can see his ears just kind of hanging out. So B is going to be 2025.13.0. There's information out there in numbering systems and stuff like that, depending on what you want to do. Some people may just do 1, 2, 3, 4. However, this is the way that most of the standard best practice follow, and this is what I follow in Fairfield. So B is now 2025.13.0. And for the title, I'm going to say teddy bear. You can also, and this is just, I'm doing this as an example of stuff that you might know just going in and picking something up from a shelf and entering information. So alternate name, I happen to know this bear has a name. I actually don't know how to spell that name. That's just what we always called him. And my mom used to know how to spell it, but it's not helpful to me because he can't tell me. So I'm entering a couple of different alternate titles for this bear. Now, before we get too far, I'm going to click save. So I have all my options ready over here. What else do I know about this bear? I got him in 1970. So we're going to use 1970 as a date manufactured created. It was probably more likely an about, but I'm going to use the 1970 for this. Curatorial description, stuffed toy bear. That's all we need for now. Oh, let me say tan. Colors are always good. Tan toy bear. If you have a color, if you have something like that, it's usually really good to put that down. Stay away from stuff like old, ancient, huge, tiny. Sizes can work sometimes in context, but if you don't have the context of, is it bigger than a bread box, it's hard to say. He's definitely old. I don't know that I'd call him an antique. I don't know that he would like that too much. But stuff, just basic stuff, toy, tan toy bear. And I know that if I look at all of the bears on the shelf in the collection, I'll spot him because I know he's tan as opposed to some of the other ones. And for now, we're just doing a basic. So I'm going to skip over like a more exacting description. But I'm going to go, while I'm thinking about it, since I was in a pause, click save. It kind of comes automatically after a while. Related entities. Okay. I'm going to put myself in. I'm already in the sandbox as a system, as a person. So I can just start typing my name and it'll show up as related to the entities. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say owned by, and I'm also going to put myself in as the donor. So you can put in the same person with two different types. So I own him and I'm donating him. Don't worry, I'm not donating you. So I'm the donor and I'm going to say gift of me. So now I can save that. Things that you don't know about, like if you don't know a manufacturer or something else, sometimes it's okay to say unknown. You don't need to do it for every single thing. I've actually created an unknown entity in the system, so I have that available to me. So I don't know who made him. So I'm just going to use that unknown identifier as the created by. He used to have a tag, it's long gone. Yeah. So that's kind of our basic stuff there. We want to put a location. I do know where he is. Right now he's on the porch. I don't have a matching link for porch, so I'm just going to say storage. Gosh, I wonder if anybody put a parlor in here. This is all existing within, oh, somebody's got parlors. Cool. I'm going to say that he's in the parlor on the first floor. And then put a note in for that. A note about the entities too, because we're going to talk about creating new entities too while we're here. So you can do that in two different ways. And an entity, again, is a person or business that's related to your object. You differentiate them when you create them, and you can do it the same way as up here. You go to new and entity, choose whether it's individual or object, and you can go from there. You can also do this on the fly, which is really useful for things like doing inventories and you're just pulling something off the shelf. So I'm going to go to the relationship again, and I'm going to put in, we're going to say this was a gift from my uncle. I have no idea. There's no matches found for this name. So you're going to want to go and create that person. If you have a different access level, sometimes it'll come up and let you create it on the fly. If not, you can talk to your administrator about that if you want people to be able to do that. The system makes it difficult for you to create duplicates of names or things. It doesn't forbid it, but it does make it a little bit more difficult, but it's easy to clean up. So I don't have him in here now, so I'm going to create him as an entity. So I'm going to go new, entity, individual. So now there's my pop-up saying might not be saved. It's okay, we didn't do anything exciting. So I'm going to hit leave and it'll pop up to creating a new individual. So you'll see up here, creating a new individual. The collective access ID, we had an update a little while ago and this started popping up. You don't need to deal with that. We need to see if we can get rid of that. It's in the system, but you don't need to do anything. And this entity identifier is a system created identifier. So that you don't need to worry about that and filling anything out either. So even though it says required, the system takes care of it. So preferred labels, you're just going to enter the name, forename, middle name, brewer, click save, and I'll tell you why in a second, is the system will automatically generate a display name down here. It'll do that with pretty much anybody you enter just using what you put up above, but it's always good to display and save it to make sure that that's the name you want being shown. I'm going to put in now, and in the notes, note about the biography related to the public portal. Anything, if you make a person public access, I usually only do this with like artists or people that have been dead for 100 years that may have owned something before. Anything that you have in that biography field will show up on your public record if you make a record public access. So if I have stuff that I don't necessarily think the public needs to know, but we at the institution needs to know, is I put it in the notes. Notes are never public access. So I'm going to put in, is the uncle of the donor. I'm just going to say uncle of the donor. And this, and yeah, was uncle of the donor. That's all I need to know for this.
Diane,
Yes.
this is Tova. Just to
Hey, Tova.
clarify that bit about public access, is that public access of the object that the entity is associated with, or is that just public access privileges for the entity itself?
Right now, we were just talking about the entity. So that's only for that. And that's going to be, I don't even think the cataloger has access to be able to do that, like the cataloger level. That'll be an admin level unless you talk to your admin and they decide it's okay. We did a whole discussion on Monday about the different access levels and what you might want to do in your institution. Like for instance, I have a volunteer and inventory or a volunteer and intern level. They don't have access to make things public access. They give me a list of stuff and I review it afterwards, but they can't make things public access. Because normally you would see like a admin info thing down here as well. So this is only speaking to this. I think I'm good with I'm pretty good with this for now. And then I'll go back to that object and show you that too. Although I think the cataloger cannot do public access in objects either. So within your individual, your person, you have them related to all these kind of things here. Just for kicks, I'm going to put entity because technically related. I'm going to relate us. And again, you just start typing the name. Once I'm in, then you can select it and you're good. Click save. So we're going to go back to make sure his record's good. So I'm going to go up to history, objects, teddy bear, and down here under relationship, this is kind of a stretch actually adding him in. It'd be more like he'd be in a provenance note. So there he is. And I'm just going to say that he's associated with, because we'll say he was the one that gave me this bear when I was little, for instance. But we want to have him in here because he's related to other things in the collection, something like that. So now you see that time when I started typing his name, it showed up and I can select him, associated with, and it's here. And let me check on that public access thing while we're here. Okay, so cataloger level, at least as far as the sandbox, you can make something public access or not. Everything is by default, every record, object, people, archival collections, any of that is by default not accessible to the public. So you will not have things going out to the web. If you're in the portal, you'll not have things going out to the web unless you mark it as public access. And all you would do is just hit that little button and click accessible to the public. It's basically those two choices. We don't have restricted public access set up for anybody right now. So it's just one or the other. Here, I'm going to say that that's that. I'm going to put you in Fairfield. Do you mind being in Fairfield? Okay. We're going to say he's accessioned. And then that's good. Object status up here is very handy if you're doing things like inventory. You can make a note of whether something or that other record that I was putting that other woman's record, if something's missing. I don't put things as missing unless I literally know that it's missing, that I've looked for it and can't find it, or that I know it was stolen or something. But anything you can mark something on exhibit, whether something's on loan, or to deaccession. If you're going through and doing an inventory and something's in terrible shape and you want to deaccession it, you can click that. It's easy to find later on. I'm going to change any of those. And get back to my other thing and make sure that there wasn't anything else that I was going to fill in. Consistency is key. Follow best practices. Be consistent with what you're entering. Spell words out all the way. Like I'll put, for him, I put teddy bear in the name, but I'm also going to put stuffed bear as like an alternate name or something like that, just to have a couple different things in there. Talked about that. Here's some resources that are really helpful for cataloging. I've used these in previous presentations. Publications wise, managing previously unmanaged collections is great. She just did a second edition, so I haven't read that one yet, but her first edition was so helpful. And again, this is going to be up on the YouTube channel, so to be able to get this at the end of the video. National Park Service is always a great example with both the cataloging overview and guidelines. Collections Trust in the UK has great information as well. So things like that are really good. Registration methods for small museums is always a go-to, and also museum registration methods. Sometimes those are pretty pricey. You can get them on used book things, or set Amazon to search for one. If you don't get like the most current edition, go to the edition before and it's okay. There's still some of this information is not going to have changed. So I'm going to stop recording. Does anybody have any questions?